You know, that feeling deep down, that subtle nudge that tells you you're destined for something great, or maybe that you're already quite extraordinary? What if that voice, the one that often sounds like, ambition or confidence, what if it's actually your biggest internal obstacle?
It's a really profound question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because we instinctively look outward for challenges, don't we?
Yeah, totally.
But like Richard Feynman famously said, the first principle is that you must not fool yourself, and you are the easiest person to fool.
Right.
And that speaks directly to what we're digging into today.
Exactly. Today we're doing a deep dive into that internal adversary, ego. We're pulling insights straight from Ryan Holiday's really powerful book, Ego is the Enemy.
Such a good book.
It really unpacks how this insidious force gets in our way at every stage of life, whether we're just aspiring to something,
Right.
or we've achieved success, or even when we're dealing with failure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And our goal here really is to give you a kind of shortcut to understanding this force.
Yeah.
We want to equip you with some surprising historical examples, some practical takeaways, things to help you recognize ego, in yourself, in others,
Okay.
and hopefully liberate you to actually accomplish the really impactful work you're setting out to do.
And the author himself, Holiday, he had early success, right? College dropout, young executive.
Oh, yeah. He saw it firsthand. He talks about the painful implosions of his mentors, even struggles in his own life, like having a panic attack over bad Wi-Fi. Sounds small, but it pointed to something deeper.
Wow. So he wrote it from experience.
Deep experience. He actually says the book should make you think less of yourself.
Interesting.
And be less invested in the story you tell about your own specialness.
Okay, so it's not about crushing confidence then. It's about distinguishing it from something else.
Exactly. That's the key distinction. Ego often looks like confidence, but they're fundamentally different things.
How so?
Well, ego is often artificial swagger,
Yeah.
It's self-anointed. True confidence, on the other hand, that's earned. It's built on real competence, real humility.
Right.
And history is it's littered with examples where unchecked ego led to disaster. Figures like Howard Hughes or the Persian king Xerxes.
Okay.
It led to far more failures than successes. Ego's basically a gamble. And the stakes are, your potential and your peace of mind.
So let's unpack that. When you're just starting out, aspiring to something big, where does ego most commonly trip us up?
Okay, yeah. Aspiration. One of the biggest pitfalls right at the start is what Holiday calls the trap of talk.
The trap of talk.
Yeah. When you're dreaming big, there's this powerful temptation to, explain your vision, visualize success, just talk about it constantly.
I can see that. It feels productive.
It feels productive. But studies actually show our minds can confuse talking or even just visualizing with actual progress.
Ah, okay. So your brain gets the reward without doing the work.
Precisely. Your brain releases those feel-good chemicals just from the idea, creating a false sense of achievement.
Right.
And the harder the task, the more uncertain it is.
Right.
The more costly that talk becomes.
Costly.
Because it saps the energy you desperately need. Energy to overcome what Stephen Pressfield calls the resistance.
That internal friction.
That internal friction, yeah. That force pushing back against any real creative work. Marlon Brando said, void is terrifying to most people. We talk to fill that void, that uncertainty.
Makes sense.
But the people who really make an impact, the ones we remember, they often work quietly. They turn their inner turmoil into actual product, ignoring the limelight until the work itself speaks for them.
Turning turmoil into product. That
Yeah.
sounds demanding. Which makes me think, what kind of discipline do you need for that, especially when you start getting some early wins? Is it about always being a student?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's crucial. True mastery demands you stay a student. Always. It's so tempting once you get a taste of success to think, okay, I've made it.
Yeah, the ego kicks in.
Big time. But that's a trap. Think about Kirk Hammett, lead guitarist for Metallica.
Okay, huge band.
Huge. Joined his dream band. Did he coast? No. He sought out Joe Satriani, a top guitar instructor.
Wow.
And for 2 years, he endured harsh objective feedback, drilling fundamentals.
Yeah.
He didn't think he was too good for it.
That's incredible dedication. It
Yeah.
really shows even at the absolute top, there's still more to learn.
Without a doubt. And this isn't just for musicians or athletes. It applies everywhere.
Right.
Great leaders, great thinkers throughout history. Socrates, right? Famously knew he knew nothing. Modern leaders, athletes, they always have teachers, advisors. Even Genghis Khan,
Genghis Khan. Really, I picture him more as a conqueror.
often portrayed as a brute. Yeah.
Yeah.
But he was actually one of history's greatest learners. He adopted military structures from Turkic tribes, siege warfare from Chinese engineers.
No kidding.
He used scholars, astrologers from conquered lands. The Mongol Empire's success wasn't just brute force. It came from this incredible openness to learning, to new ideas. Peter Drucker, the management guru, he reminds us it's not enough just to want to learn. You have to understand how you learn and set up systems for continuous education.
Okay, switching gears a bit. The book also has a really provocative take on passion. We usually think of passion as purely good, right? Find your passion.
Right. It's everywhere. Live passionately.
Yeah. But Holiday says, beware of passion. Why?
This is such a critical point. We're told follow your passion, but passion, Holiday argues, can be deceptive.
How so?
It often masks weakness. It can be a poor substitute for the real stuff. Discipline, mastery, strength, perseverance.
Examples.
Think of the segue. Huge passion, huge hype. Ignored market realities.
Right, total frop initially.
Or the lead up to the Iraq War. Passionate arguments overriding serious objections. The story of Into the Wild. Or Robert Falcon Scott's Antarctic expedition.
Tragic.
All fueled by this intense zeal that just bulldozed reality and feedback. Unchecked passion leads to confirmation bias, right? You only look for stuff that confirms what you already believe.
Yeah, you see what you want to see.
Exactly. Passionate people can talk endlessly about their future success, but often show very little actual progress.
So it's better to be a bit intimidated by the task. Humble.
Far better. Be intimidated by what's ahead, humbled by the scale of it, and then just be determined to see it through anyway. Like Talleyrand advised diplomats. Above all, not too much zeal.
Oh.
Real work needs clear eyes, careful thought, not just raw, unchecked emotion.
That really makes me think about starting out in a career, maybe. The book talks about something called the canvas strategy.
Ah, yes, the canvas strategy.
It's kind of a hard truth, right? When you start, you're probably not as good or important as you think you are.
Oof, yeah, that can sting the ego.
And your attitude might need adjusting.
Definitely. So instead of chasing your own glory right away, the canvas strategy says, attach yourself to successful people, successful organizations.
But isn't that just sucking up?
It's not DMC if you do it right. It's strategic. It's being an anti-embolo, literally one who clears the path. You find ways to help them succeed, promote their creativity, clear their distractions. You become the canvas for them.
Like Benjamin Franklin writing those anonymous letters, helping his brother's newspaper.
Perfect example. He learned about public opinion, honed his writing, all without needing the credit himself at first.
Right.
Or Bill Belichick, legendary coach now.
Yeah.
He climbed the ladder by volunteering for grunt work, like analyzing film, stuff others didn't want. He just soaked it all up, offered smart feedback privately.
So greatness often starts with humility, embracing the unglamorous stuff.
Often does. Being the least important person in the room until your results speak volumes. Produce more than others. Give your ideas away freely. It builds trust and earns you opportunities.
What about when you face pushback? Maybe even sabotage. Your ego just screams, fight back. Don't they know who I am?
Oh, yeah. That's the immediate reaction.
But the book says sometimes you have to protect your powers by just enduring it.
Yeah.
What does that take?
It takes immense restraint. It's a really hard skill, but critical. Think about Jackie Robinson.
Okay. Baseball legend.
When Branch Rickey was scouting him for the Dodgers, he asked him point blank if he had the guts not to fight back.
Wow. Not to fight back.
Exactly. Despite Robinson having a history of challenging authority and knowing he'd face horrible, aggressive provocation.
He was hit by pitches constantly, right?
Hit by 72 pitches, people trying to injure him, coordinated campaigns, but he held to his pact with Rickey. His self-control facing that profound injustice was absolutely crucial to his mission.
So it's not about being weak or a doormat. It's about the bigger goal.
It's entirely about the bigger goal. It doesn't degrade you when others act poorly. It degrades them. Ego wants you to fight every single battle, defend every slight. But for something really big, really meaningful, sometimes you have to endure, brush it off, and just keep working harder. Play the long game.
Okay, so let's say you've played the long game, you've done the work, you've endured, and you've actually achieved your goal. Success.
Right. You made it.
What happens then? The book warns that a whole new set of ego traps emerge, like getting stuck out of your own head.
Yeah, this is a big one. Success can be isolating. You start believing your own press, maybe.
Like those fictional characters, Holden Caulfield or Arturo Bandini, just lost in their own thought.
Exactly. Detached from reality. Plato called it feasting on their own thoughts.
Yeah.
Our minds, especially when they're fueled by ambition or this pressure to have a personal brand, they can spin these endless narratives. Self-aggrandizement or sometimes self-loathing. Either way, it's internal chatter.
And that chatter can be paralyzing or blinding.
Both. It can blind you to crucial information.
Yeah.
Like General McClellan in the Civil War, who constantly overestimated the enemy because of his own narratives and fears.
So how do you stop feasting on your own thoughts?
You have to consciously curb it.
Yep.
People who sustain success often do. George C. Marshall, one of the key figures in World War II.
Right.
He refused to keep a diary during the war, actively avoided that temptation to perform for history or fall into self-deception. Your imagination is an asset, obviously, for creativity. But when it runs wild with ego, it hinders your ability to predict, interpret reality, stay hungry, even just appreciate the present moment.
So it's not just don't boast yet, it's cultivate a mindset where boasting isn't the point at all.
Exactly. Not the point. Period.
And tied to that is this relentless need for work, even after success.
Especially after success. Ideas are great, sure.
Oh.
But like the poet Mallarmé told the painter Degas, it's not with ideas that what makes verse, it's with words.
Meaning execution is everything.
Execution is everything. Henry Ford said, you can't build a reputation on what you're going to do.
Right.
The hard part isn't the big dream, it's the grind, the struggle, the, middle of the night cold sweats.
Oh, yeah.
Think about Charles Darwin, decades working on evolution, decades. Mostly in quiet solitude, refraining from publishing until it was meticulous. Or William T. Sherman, who we mentioned earlier. Years of unglamorous work, totally out of the spotlight, before the Civil War made him essential.
So early success can be misleading. It makes craziness look like boldness.
It can. It makes delusion look like confidence. But it just kicks the real costs down the road. Sustainable success demands persistent, humble work. Not just grand visions or patting yourself on the back.
So success isn't an endpoint. It's an ongoing commitment.
It really is. Do you love the work itself? The practice, the daily grind? Or are you just chasing short-term applause? One sustains, the other evaporates.
Okay, then there's the warning. Beware the disease of me.
Yes, Pat Riley's phrase.
Success can be intoxicating, right? But staying successful requires sobriety. What does that mean?
It means resisting that powerful urge to put your own ego, your own needs, ahead of the team, the mission, the collective good.
Like Howard Hughes, legendary figure, but
arguably, Holliday points out, one of the worst businessmen of the 20th century, fueled by ego, injuries, addictions.
Yeah.
He wasted incredible talent, died miserable in his own self-made prison.
wow.
Aristotle saw it centuries ago. It's hard to bear the results of good fortune suitably.
You see it in sports teams all the time, don't you? The disease of me.
All the time.
Yeah.
Pat Riley coined it, watching winning teams fall apart. Individual egos fraying the bonds. Think Shaq and Kobe, or Michael Jordan literally punching teammates.
Right. Intense.
George C. Marshall, again, provides the antidote. He actively discouraged people lobbying for promotions under him.
Really?
Yeah. And famously, he turned down the command of D-Day, the most prestigious job, basically. Believed Eisenhower was better suited.
Incredible selflessness.
His sense of honor meant turning down honors when it served the mission. We never, ever earn the right to be greedy or put our interests first at the expense of others.
Like that soccer coach quote, Tony Adams.
Yeah. Play for the name on the front of the jersey, and they'll remember the name on the back. Brilliant.
That is brilliant. Okay, let's shift to the third phase. Failure. When things go wrong. Setbacks.
Right. Inevitable.
The advice here is don't tell yourself a story. Why is that so crucial when you fail?
Because when things go sideways, it's such a human impulse to create a narrative after the fact.
Right.
To impose clarity, or maybe even a grand destiny where there wasn't one.
To make it make sense.
To make it make sense, exactly. Bill Walsh, the coach who took the 49ers from worst to Super Bowl champs in just 3 years.
Amazing turnaround.
Amazing. But he consistently refused the genius label. He admitted his initial ambitions were, quote, utterly delusional. His success came from his standard of performance, focusing on tiny, meticulous details, trusting that if you did those right, the score takes care of itself.
So he knew it wasn't some grand narrative he cooked up after winning. It was the boring, consistent detail.
Precisely. So when you hit success or failure, Resist that urge to pretend you knew it all along. That kind of storytelling just leads to arrogance or delusion. It turns your life into a caricature.
Yeah.
Google didn't start out to change the world, right?
Yeah.
The founders were working on PhD dissertations. YouTube guys just wanted to share funny videos.
Right. Much smaller origins.
True progress is usually messy. It's hoping, working hard, getting some lucky breaks. Not some neat preordained story. Honesty with yourself is key.
And when failure, or just tough circumstances you didn't choose, hit you, you face a choice. A lifetime or dead time. What's the difference?
This is all about agency. Even when things seem totally out of your control, Malcolm X is the prime example here.
Okay.
Incarcerated for a decade, starting at age 21. That could easily be dead time. Wasted years.
For sure.
But he transformed it into a lifetime. Taught himself to read properly, copied a dictionary word for word, devoured books on history, philosophy.
Wow.
In prison.
In prison. He called prison his college, said later he'd never been so truly free as when he was educating himself behind bars. He chose to use that time.
That's incredibly powerful, turning adversity into fuel.
It's about what you do with the time, not just the circumstances. It's not limited to prison either. Francis Scott Key wrote The Star-Spangled Banner, trapped on a British ship during a battle. Viktor Frankl refined his psychological theories in Nazi concentration camps. So the choice is succumb to anger, victimhood. That's dead time.
That's dead time. Or you ask yourself, okay, this situation sucks, but how can I use it? This is an opportunity for me. I will not let this be dead time. It's an internal flip of the switch.
Okay, but what if you do that? You choose a lifetime, you do everything right, and the results are still bad. Failure, disrespect, people just ignore your work. The book says the effort is enough. That feels hard to swallow.
It does feel hard, especially for the ego. The example used is Belisarius, the great Byzantine general.
Okay.
Won battle after battle for Emperor Justinian. Huge victories.
Yeah.
How was he rewarded? With suspicion, his victories undermined, his wealth stripped away. Legend says he was even blinded and forced to beg.
That's brutal.
Brutal. Yet, he apparently never complained. He believed that doing the right thing, serving his country, his God, knowing he did his job well, that had to be enough.
Because you can't control the reception?
You cannot control how the world receives your work once it leaves your hands. That's the critical lesson. Are you willing to work hard for something that might be taken away? Invest everything, even if the outcome isn't guaranteed.
That's a tough question.
If ego isn't driving, the answer is yes. Ego screams, why me? How dare they? How do I prove I'm great? It's that animal fear of weakness, of not being enough.
Right.
Humility lets you learn from it. Maybe build something better instead of just, digging a deeper hole like John DeLorean did, trying to save his failing car company with a cocaine deal. Tragic ego-driven spiral.
Yeah.
You have to be prepared for indifference, too. Remember Diogenes telling Alexander the Great?
Stop blocking my son!
Yeah. Just total indifference to power and status.
That's a stark reminder. Okay, another point for when things go wrong. Always love. This seems related to not getting bitter.
Very related. When you're successful, or even if you're not, you might feel this need to protect your image, your legacy, your influence.
Yes.
But spending endless energy trying to control how the world sees you, trying to stop people from displeasing you. Holiday says it's a trap. William Randolph Hearst is the cautionary tale.
The media mogul.
Yeah. Launched this absurd, years-long campaign to destroy Orson Welles' film, Citizen Kane, because it was, partly based on him.
Right.
What happened? He ironically cemented his own legacy as this petty, vindictive figure more effectively than any critic could have. Hate, as the book says, will get you every time. It's self-destructive.
And Richard Nixon reflected on this too, didn't he? About his own image.
He did. After his fall, he admitted that his lifelong image as a scrappy fighter battling a hostile world was his undoing. He just couldn't stop fighting, couldn't stop lashing out, persecuting reporters.
More damage to himself.
Exactly. More damage than anyone else could. Compare that to leaders like Frederick Douglass or Martin Luther King Jr. They understood hate is like a cancer eating away at you. Love and empathy, even for enemies, is actually liberating.
Like Orson Welles bumping into Hearst and just inviting him to the premiere.
Yeah. Reportedly, just calmly invited him. No malice, just moving on. It shows who had the real power in that situation.
To counteract that self-importance, the book suggests we meditate on the immensity. What does that mean?
Success, or even just intense focus, can isolate us, make us feel really important, powerful, central to everything. Ego loves that feeling. It tells us meaning comes from being busy, being the center of attention.
But that disconnects us.
Disconnects us from something much larger. John Muir, the naturalist, experienced this feeling he called sympathia in Alaska.
Sympathia.
Yeah, like a profound connection with the cosmos. Realizing how infinitesimal human concerns are in the grand scheme, it helps you ask the big questions. Who am I, really? What's my actual role here?
So contemplating nature or history?
Exactly. Walking an ancient battlefield.
Yeah.
Thinking about the vastness of the universe, Neil deGrasse Tyson talks about feeling both incredibly small and incredibly connected, part of something huge that dissolves ego.
Thinking about how Cleopatra lived closer to our time than to the building of the pyramids.
Right. That kind of perspective shift. Those old black and white photos make the past seem alien, making us feel special.
Yeah.
But Holiday reminds us we are just like them and always will be. That perspective brings humility. And humility allows creativity to come from receptiveness, being open, rather than just being self-absorbed.
It's hard to feel uniquely special when you grasp that scale.
Very hard.
It's also fascinating how quiet power can be. The advice to just behave seems counterintuitive in our flashy world. Angela Merkel is the example.
She's a perfect example. Former German chancellor. Very plain, modest, no flash, no fiery speeches. Didn't seem to care about presentation much.
But incredibly effective.
Incredibly effective. This sobriety, as Holiday calls it, instead of ego-driven drama, made her wildly popular and powerful. She's the tortoise. Slow, steady, gets it done.
I remember that story about Putin trying to intimidate her with his dog.
Yeah, he brought his big dog into a meeting knowing she's afraid of dogs.
Yeah.
She didn't flinch. Joked about it later, made him look insecure.
Right.
Merkel is firm, clear, patient, willing to compromise on details, but not the core principle. A German writer said her unpretentiousness is Merkel's main weapon. She cared about results, not sizzle.
Unlike Howard Hughes, who had all the sizzle but died miserably.
Exactly. Merkel lived a normal, private life. Proves you don't need ostentation to be immensely successful and have a huge impact.
Okay, finally. Prepare for adversity, because life will knock you down.
Guaranteed. It will dash your plans to pieces, sometimes once, sometimes many times.
And this connects back to ego how?
It means accepting that bad things happen, even if you do everything right. Katharine Graham is the key story here.
Inherited the Washington Post.
Yeah, after her husband's tragic suicide, she was 46, no real work experience, suddenly in charge of this huge corporation, terrified, unprepared, naive.
Wow, talk about being thrown in the deep end.
Totally, a true baptism of fire.
Yeah.
Battling a conservative board, deciding to publish the Pentagon Papers against government threats, enduring Nixon's wrath during Watergate, facing a hostile takeover attempt by Warren Buffett.
Who then became her mentor.
That became her friend and mentor, yeah, fighting a vicious printer strike. Through all that, she became one of the greatest CEOs of her generation.
Her story really shows you can do almost everything right and still end up in massive trouble.
Absolutely. Failure often just shows up, uninvited. But your ego is what can make it stick around. Make you blame everyone else, refuse to adapt, dig in your heels.
Graham didn't need swagger then. She needed strength.
She needed real strength. True confidence, earned through fire, a willingness to endure, and crucially, a purpose larger than herself. She wasn't just fighting for fairness for herself. She was fighting for her family's legacy, for the newspaper itself.
Your ego betrays you when things get tough.
It really does. It tells you to quit or lash out or feel sorry for yourself. But you can choose to proceed without it.
Wow, okay. We have covered a lot of ground here. Navigating this really treacherous terrain of ego, from how it puffs up our aspirations, how it can corrupt success, how it makes failure so much worse.
Yeah. And we see these figures throughout history. Generals, rock stars, leaders, regular people who either fell prey to it or managed to rise above it.
Through things like humility, discipline, constantly learning.
And having that commitment to something bigger than just themselves.
So the journey to self-awareness, to genuine accomplishment, it's clearly ongoing, not a one-and-done thing.
Definitely not. It's a lifelong practice. So maybe the provocation for everyone listening is this. What part of your life right now is your ego subtly influencing, maybe without you even realizing it? Where might you be telling yourself a convenient story, or letting that raw passion substitute for hard perseverance? Or maybe mistaking being somebody important with actually doing something meaningful.
So maybe the challenge for this week is, what's one concrete step you can take, one small thing to live more from that place of rock-hard humility and earned confidence?
Yeah, and less from the constant demanding whispers of ego.